the Philadelphia Eagles, and I know that they're a home dog. I think it's time to break out those underdog masks. But the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the things that I like about this team is that they're strong on both lines. Now, they took a blow because Brandon Brooks is not going to play in this game. On Sunday, they lost him last week in their regular season finale against the New York Giants. But they still have that defensive line intact with Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, and company. And I think that they can put some pressure on Russell Wilson if that Seahawks offense isn't able to establish that run game. I know that they signed Marshawn Lynch last week, but that was out of desperation because they lost C.J. Prosise, they lost Rashad Penny, and they lost Chris Carson. So you're talking about their three best options at the running back position within the last 5 weeks of the season. So this is a desperate Seahawks team in terms of being able to try to find production in the run game. If they get forced to be in a drop-back game and try to put it on Russell Wilson's arm, I just don't think they're going to have a lot of success doing it that way. Since Week 10, the Seahawks are giving up sacks on 10% of their dropbacks. That, by far, is the highest rate in the National Football League. No other team is doing that. So you have to be a little bit concerned if the Seahawks are forced to be a volume passing team in this game, that this is probably going to be a one-sided affair.
Yeah, the Seahawks certainly have to protect their quarterback better. But it's just funny how we all have said at parts during this season that Russell Wilson is an MVP. He's the best quarterback that we've seen all year. And now we're saying because they don't have the running backs, oh, we have to worry about putting everything on the shoulders of Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is just that good. I think Metcalf can be an explosive player down the field. I think Lockett can do the same thing. The one big thing that the Philadelphia Eagles defense has struggled at is covering receivers deep down the field. And Russell Wilson throws one of the best deep balls in the NFL. And so because of that, I think that they could take advantage of the Eagles defense on Sunday. But here's the other part. Philadelphia Eagles are missing Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson. We don't know what's going to happen with Zach Ertz and his ribs. Obviously, Brandon Brooks. So their frontline guys, as far as their ability to run the football, it's been compromised. Their ability to make plays down the field has been compromised. The only way that they've been able to be successful is Carson Wentz taking a bunch of guys that were on the practice squad or just weren't playing at all and making those guys special. And really, and Coach Mangini talks about it all the time, being an elevator, being a force multiplier. Carson Wentz has been that force multiplier. You have to wonder, does that happen in the playoffs? I think with tougher teams that you're going to be facing, it's going to be harder for their offense to score points.
So here's the other element to it. Philadelphia was 5-7, and then what happened? They won 4 straight. But how did they win those 4 straight? They had 4 straight games against a historically bad division, the NFC East. They went Giants, Washington, Dallas, back to the Giants on that 4-game winning streak. I refuse to be duped by the last month of the season where they were playing only divisional opponents. They had a losing record outside of the division. All year long, we talked about how this very talented team had been underachieving and then ravaged by injuries. Seattle, on the other hand, I actually think last year in the playoffs, had they suffered a spate of running back injuries like they have this year, they'd have beaten the Cowboys. Because last year in the playoffs, what cost them that game was their dedication to running the ball. They ran the ball 24 times for 73 yards in that playoff game, which is bad. It's even worse when you consider 13 of those yards were by Russell Wilson, and 28 of them were the one time Rashad Penny got loose. That means on their other 19 carries, they got 42 total yards. Meanwhile, when Russell dropped back, which he should have done way more often, but that Brian Schottenheimer offense, they wouldn't let him, and it was incredibly frustrating to watch. They were very successful. I think they are forced into letting Russell Wilson drop back more, and I actually think that's good for them. I think sometimes they believe they are a run-first, defense-oriented team. The defense in Seattle is not that good.
No.
Since 2009, 132 teams have made the playoffs. The Seattle Seahawks have the 129th sack rate of those 132 teams. That's from Bill Barnwell's great preview article that went up last night. I think this is a Russell Wilson game, and I think Russell Wilson is one of the 3 best quarterbacks in football. I think he can have another signature moment. With that said, Canty, I think it's a very close game. Seattle does not know how to blow people out. They don't even try, seemingly, to blow people out. They have 11 wins this year. 10 of them have come by 8 points or fewer. They've been in one-score games all year long. So I like Seattle. I like Seattle in a very close one. And because it'll be a close game, Carson Wentz will, I think, have an opportunity for the signature moment that he has yet to have in his career because he hasn't played in the playoffs. I just don't know if Philly has the horses for it, despite despite them being on a 4-game winning streak.
No, listen, I get you guys' logic in a close ball game. You trust Russell Wilson a lot more than you trust Carson Wentz, but this ain't fantasy football. In order to be able to take advantage of the deficiency of the Eagles' defense, the back end, you got to be able to have time, and that offensive line for the Seahawks has got to be able to hold up in protection. I talked to you about the sack rate since week 10 from that Seahawks offensive line. But if you look at Russell Wilson's passer rating since that point in the season, there's a reason why his production has fallen off since the first half of the year.
That's where his MVP.
Exactly. The first half of the year, in the first 9 games, he had a passer rating north of 100 in 8 of those ball games. But since then, he's only had a passer rating north of 100 in 1 of them. So Russell Wilson is not playing as good of a football as he was in the first half of the season, and I think there's a direct correlation to how the offensive line is playing and also losing those running backs and not have the balance of the production in the run game to lean on. So if that Seahawks offense becomes one-dimensional, yeah, I like Russell Wilson with the ball in his hands, but the Seahawks offense wasn't built to be a volume passing offense. So, yeah, I'm concerned that the Philadelphia Eagles corners can't hold up in coverage. They're awful. I mean, they've allowed the 6th most yards to wide receivers and the 4th most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers on the season. But in order to take advantage of that deficit, you got to be able to have time. And I don't think that Philadelphia Eagles D-line is going to give Russell Wilson time.
First half of the year, Russell Wilson, 22 touchdowns, 1 pick. Second half of the year, 9 touchdowns, 4 picks when the protection started to break down, to your point. Now, to the top score.
You know, I'm just pretty focused on what I need to do, and you know, this week's felt pretty much like every other week for the last 20 years. I haven't thought about those things, and you know, I wouldn't be thinking about those things anyway. You know, it's felt like a normal week for me, so I just approach practice like I always have, and try to do the best I could do. So that's what I'm gonna do this weekend as well.
Do you hear people wondering about it or no?
About what's my last game? I haven't turned the TV on. You know, it's probably not the best after we lose to turn the TV on, listen to all your guys' shows and stuff like that.
He doesn't turn TV on. He only does Facebook Watch, where he has his own television show. Brian, if the Pats lose, do you think this will be Tom Brady's last game as a Patriot?
No. I think when you have the greatest of all time, the GOAT, Tom Brady, you allow him to come back as often as he wants. If he wants to play till he's 45, then he'll play till he's 45 in my uniform, especially if I'm Robert Kraft. This guy has brought relevancy to the Patriot organization. He brought this organization from nowhere in a bunch of championships. And when he wants to retire, that's when he retires from us. He gets a pass from any types of bad season like this one was. And I want to remind you, this season was bad, but then again, last year, Tom Brady only had 300 more yards passing, a few more touchdowns, a handful of more touchdowns, and so it wasn't terrible. Here's what I would do if I'm Tom Brady in the Patriots. I'm going to retool. I'm going to make sure my offensive line is healthy to begin the year. I'm going to get a running attack going. I'm going to find some receivers, and if it's N'Keal Harry, I'm going to allow him to develop. If Edelman's continue to be injured, I'm going to find a younger Julian Edelman. I'm going to find more pieces, more weapons to put around Tom Brady to allow him to be successful. I'm not throwing away Tom Brady and his 19 years of experience up there in New England just because he had one bad season that was off. I remember from 2010 to 2013, they didn't make a Super Bowl. Then every other year, they won the doggone Super Bowl. So they can have a bad year and bounce back. You have a good defense, add the ability to score some points offensively. That will support your defense, and you're right back to it next season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the short answer is no. Tom Brady's not going to play anywhere else. Where I will somewhat disagree with you is that Tom Brady, just based on his resume, will have the right to be back as the quarterback. You're talking about a Bill Belichick coach team, and Belichick is notorious for moving on from a player a year early as opposed to a year late. The only difference with the Tom Brady situation is there is no in-house replacement for your quarterback if you decide to part company with TB12. Belichick is not turning it over to Jarrett Stidham. That's not going to happen. We saw that it's just a little too much for Jarrett Stidham, and he came in garbage time for the Jets. He played in the preseason. You see that he's not ready. So they don't have a viable replacement for Tom Brady. So from that sense, I do believe he'll be back. The organization will want him back. Now it's just a matter of whether or not Tom Brady wants to come back. But when you're talking about a quarterback who over the course of 2 decades has never had a losing season, never had a season under 500, never had a season at 500.
Yep.
Yeah, most of the seasons that he's played in have been double-digit win seasons. There's only one year out there where he was 9-7. That was the year after they won the first Super Bowl.
And it's the only year they've ever missed the playoffs.
It's the only year they ever missed the playoffs with him. So Tom Brady recognizes how important it is to have good people around him, to have the infrastructure in place in order to compete at the highest levels. And when you're talking about an infrastructure with an organization in the NFL, you have to look at the head coach.